the mic working? Can I invite you to come to our inner circle so that we don't feel lonely over here? Yes, please. You know, the inner circle knows more things. This is it. In class, you clearly in the classroom, you were the guy sitting in the back, right? Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marilyn. I'm the founder of Cosmic Centaurs. And Cosmic Centaurs is an organizational and leadership development consultancy that I started in April of 2020. So we're now 4.5 years old or so. Oh, my Zoom thing is in the middle. Yeah. Thank you, Tala. Actually, Tala and I started the first edition of the Cosmic Conference from our dining room table in the pandemic. And now my clicker no longer works, so I'll adjust that. Does it work now? Yeah. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the Cosmic Conference in just a second. But the first thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to all of you, to our guests and speakers that are joining us later today. We actually have something on our website that's called a wall of gratitude. And since the first year we were incorporated, we started adding the names of people who've come to our events, who've helped us, even just people who sent us words of encouragement, downloaded our content, came to one of these. And today, actually, I was checking how many names. It's the first time I check how many, because someone asked me recently. And there were 470 names. So together with us in the room is another 470 people. And by the way, in theory, all of your names are there, unless you hadn't confirmed your attendance. Then we didn't know you were coming. But we'll add them after today ends. But it's just to say that we like to approach everything that we do with gratitude to all of you, to everyone who helped make this happen. And we never forget the team. I always say that I get to be the one to, in a lot of occasions, to represent our work to others. But actually, what I'm representing is the work of all of these people. Some of them, Tala is with us here today, but many of them are in Dubai or in Beirut or in Egypt, and they're the ones who did all the real work to make this happen. So a great deal of gratitude to them as well. Now, this is the 5th edition of our Cosmic Conference. As some of you asked me, and some of you asked me which one was my favorite. And Tala and I had that discussion today. I think it might be this one. But let me tell you a little bit about the history of the conference. We started it, like I said, in the pandemic. It was just the two of us. And we started off with a conference about the future of work. We like to think that we were the first people to do a future of work conference, although we don't have proof for that. And that was July 2020. It was early days. We were all still in the midst of the uncertainty of the pandemic and trying to deal with it, and we wanted to contribute in some way. And then after that, the following year, we worked on the future of teams. We were still kind of on lockdown in most places, having to understand how to be a good leader in that context, and we wanted to support. The following year was the year of quiet quitting, and that's when we worked on the employee experience. And last year, most companies came to the end of a strategy cycle, and so we focused on strategy execution. All of this to also introduce our theme for this year. This year, of course, geopolitics is on everybody's mind. I'm Lebanese. It's on my mind almost every minute of every day. But we don't want to talk about geopolitics, and we didn't want to talk about AI either, although I'm sure that's also on everyone's mind. So instead, we wanted to choose something that we consider to be a bit of a timeless topic, something that we think the leaders, such as yourselves, that we work with, even ourselves, have struggled with 200 years ago and will continue to struggle with 400 years from now. And that's this idea that actually the more you grow as a leader, the more you are presented with situations where you think that two things are in opposition of each other, but in fact you have to figure out how to do both. For example, as a leader, you have to think about both the present and the future. You have to build the company today, but imagine it tomorrow, and you have to do these things at the same time. You have to engage your people, care for them, help them to grow, develop their capabilities, but you also have the pressure to perform, and so you need to demand performance of them. There are many of these dualities that we're faced with, and when we don't learn to develop that range, we become what we call arthritic, or a caricature, an archetype. We become the CFO who only cares about numbers, right? Or the entrepreneur who's full of great ideas for the future, but can never stay in the present long enough to actually build them out. The tactical manager or the overly compassionate leader who can't get their people to do the work. We become a cliche. And so we have to learn how to develop that range, because that's what makes us good leaders. It's what allows us to build sustainable organization and to build them so that they can survive us. And that's why we chose this theme this year. And in terms of why we called it the cosmic dance, it's actually a reference to the Nataraja. Maybe some of you here might know it from your cultures. And the Nataraja is a representation of Shiva that is also called the cosmic dancer, which is very fitting for cosmic centaurs. And this cosmic dancer is said to come every few hundred years. And when they dance, they create total destruction. But in total destruction, there is creation. They are said to represent these cycles of birth and death, day and night. But in those moments, there is the opposite of that moment too. And that's why, to us, that was an interesting reference, although each of us walk away from the various events that we've held with our own sense of what the cosmic dance means. But for us, it's an invitation to learn about how each of us as leaders can, progress along that spectrum. And we live in a complex world. We live today, and sadly, I wish every year, I'm like, this year we can stop saying we live in uncertainty, and then something else happens to bring back uncertainty in our environment. But we live in these complex and uncertain times, and to be good leaders, we have to become holistic. We have to develop that range. And the polarity concept is something, when we started to really explore it in preparation for this conference, we started to realize that actually it's a concept that has existed since the beginning of time. The yin and yang is one of its earliest representations. We found that it exists in many different realms. Actually, some of you here today, for example, come from psychology. There are a few theories there called, for example, reversal order. In coaching, there's something called the leadership shadow, right? We started to find, in physics, of course, the poles, we started to find that these things exist everywhere. That's a sign of something worth looking at, right? We also started to understand what they mean. And polarities in their definition are what you call interdependent pairs. A little bit like breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in is good, breathing out is good. If you do any of them for too long, we know the consequences. Day and night. For those of you who've watched The Third Body Problem, endless day is not a good thing. And we all know what endless night brings. And so it's this idea the polarities are interesting. And we called our conference dualities, not polarities, because we tend to think that we have to choose. But what we're hoping that we can explore together is that the choice is not what is required. That actually we have to go from this idea, and a lot of us in our school systems, I'm an architect, many of you are engineers here tonight, we're taught to solve problems. So we see something, and we're like, what's the answer? The one correct answer. But polarity thinking invites us to think of both and. How can we go beyond linear thinking into complex thinking and believe that two things that are opposite can exist at the same time, and that knowing how to master them can lead to good value. And the inventor of one of the tools that we use a lot in coaching, actually, in order to help leaders or individuals reflect on polarities, can be used also for teams or organizations, is this polarity map. So his name is Barry Johnson, and he created it in the 70s. And the invitation of this map, and I'll give you an example, because I think it's a tool, though we won't explore it in depth here today, we will send you a protocol for how to use it, whether you want to facilitate this for yourself or for people around you. But it's this idea that actually on both poles, in both sides of every polarity, there is value. There's something positive to gain from being in the present, being in the future, engaging people, demanding performance, building a company that is high growth, and making sure that it's profitable. But what often happens with us is that we start in the positive side of a pole. So whenever I mentioned any of this pole, each of us has a tendency to be somewhere. For example, I've always been a present person. And when I started Cosmic Centaurs, I realized that being a present leader was a bad idea because I also had to imagine, as I was hiring people and becoming responsible for their lives in some ways, I also had to be a good future leader. I couldn't just be a present person. But what often happens is we sit on one side of the pole, and like breathing in or breathing out, you stay too long there, and you see this little infinity loop, you start to experience the negative sides of that pole. And then oftentimes, and I'll give this example because it's a bit funny and we've all experienced it if we've worked for a large company, we then kind of go to the other extreme. We also do that in our behaviors, in our relationships. When something goes wrong, we say, oh, I'm going to now start doing this other thing that is against my nature. And then, of course, actually good things happen. You explore a new side and you learn new things, and then you stay too long there and bad things start to happen again. So one example that we like to give is centralization, decentralization, because we've all, experienced that as consultants, as employees, whatever it may be, of being in a company where, you start being centralized, and it's great for a while. We make decisions really fast. We have a single sense of where we're headed, but you spend too much time there, and people start to feel like, oh, there's bottlenecks. I'm not allowed to make decisions. We can't experiment. There's only one person making all the choices. And so we usually hire consultants like me, and we say, oh, we know the solution. You need to decentralize. And sure, we pull into the positive side. And yeah, there's new energy. People are autonomous. We can be close to our customers. Good things start to happen. And then again, we fall into the dark side. And so today is an invitation to explore both, and again, to go into that both and thinking, to discover what we call the third way, which is neither this nor that, but something that leverages the positives of both sides. And the last thing I'll say about this, just to introduce the concept, is that polarities are fractals in that their qualities are maintained at different levels, at different scales. So they operate at the self, so for us as individuals, but they also operate in leadership teams, the teams we're a member of, because when my polarity meets your polarity, something happens. Sometimes they become the source of endless conflict, risk takers and risk-averse people, always having the same discussion in those meetings. But sometimes, if we're able to actually build on them and leverage each other's polarities, they can be a superpower. And finally, we see them in organizations. Organizations themselves, outside of the people who make them up, have a tendency to sit on one or the other side of the polarities. And so today, we're going to explore that topic with our wonderful guest who's agreed to come and share his own perspective and story on how these things have played a role in his leadership journey. But just before that, and because I was sharing earlier that I'm a really bad networker, actually. I hate networking. I'm not good at it. Which is why you'll notice that when you walk in, I always make sure that either me or Tala rush to you to introduce you to someone, because I don't like this feeling of going to an event and then being alone. And so we do a lot of small things to make sure that you build real connection with each other while you're here. And before we start our masterclass for the evening, we want to start with one of those moments, actually. And I want to just invite you to turn to the person sitting next to you, or if you happen to be three of you, you can do that together, and just take a minute and share the highlight of this month for you. It can be personal, it can be from work, it can be anything. So until this moment, the highlight of my month had been that actually about 10 days ago, we did something like this in Dubai, and we called it the offsite. It was a full half day. We had about 35 leaders join us and give us a half day of their time. Like, I can't find 2 hours in my day. And we were so, so grateful to be able to create that space for them. And people were meant to leave, by 2 p.m., and they stayed till 4. Actually, Camille was both at the Dubai offsite and here, so he can tell you about it. And it was just so incredible to see the community that we had created and how much they just wanted to be around each other. So that was the highlight of my month. And with that, I'm going to give you a timer, just because it's my job to time keep. But please turn to each other and don't not only share what your highlight was, but maybe the others can resonate. And resonating means I'm going to repeat back what I heard, or I'm going to notice something about what you shared that resonates with me, that speaks to me personally. So I'll give you a little timer on this. It's somewhere, just to keep us on track, but please. Okay, okay.
Watch out.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being willing to play along and having so much energy in your discussions. I love that you all moved closer together now. Good, you're going to be friends. The best gift I have is, now that we've been doing these conferences for a while, is a few years later, people tell me about what happened after the conference and how much they've done together. So, without further delaying, let me introduce our guest today. Mr. Yasser Joharji has served as the Chief Executive Officer of Nahdi Medical Company since 2014, where he's been instrumental in driving the growth and innovation within the healthcare retail sector. And under his leadership, Nahdi has expanded its footprint to over 1,200 retail pharmacies in Saudi, effectively reaching 97% of the Saudi population. And for those of you who live or visit the UAE, you have now started seeing Nahdi everywhere. And I was just told you recently celebrated 25 branches in the UAE. Inshallah, more to come. And you serve more than 100 million customers annually. Mr. Joharji also led the company through its incredible IPO, the largest ever private IPO, the largest in the market since the Saudi Aramco IPO, and the largest retail pharmacy offering. He brings over 28 years of extensive experience in leadership roles, having previously held significant positions at Unilever and the Savola Group. And tonight, him and I will be discussing his approach to mastering polarities in himself, in his leadership team, and in his organization. Please join me in welcoming him. We have a QR code here if you'd like to submit questions, or you can also just wait and ask them live at the end. It's really entirely up to you. But I will start with my questions, and then we'll see where it takes us. And obviously, thank you to Laura for introducing us as well. And Laura will be joining us later tonight on stage to comment a little bit on all of this. But we'll start here. We got to speak a couple of times in preparation for today. And I think that what really struck me in our conversation was just how much you put into developing your own self-awareness in your own leadership journey. And of course, we'll talk about your team later, because I think that that's something that you've really made central to your leadership team and your organization. But I want to start by talking about you as a leader, and then we'll expand into the team and the organization. And I want to ask, what is the thing that in your mind prompted you to go on this journey of developing that self-awareness and just becoming a leader who is constantly, you use the word, I'm always a work in progress. But I think realizing what we need to learn is really most of the hard work. And I want to start with what led you to want to do that?
Well, first of all, Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Thank you for having me. And the disclaimer is we're all work in progress. So that work starts usually by taking the first step in your conscious or adult life. I have lost my father when I was 10 years old. And I think that was the starting point, because for any person, the father is life. Is the role model, is the person whom you follow his steps blindly without even thinking about where he's heading. You have full trust in him. So when you lose that figure, you start realizing with time that it's me and myself. I have to figure out, and I have to learn. And if you don't learn, life will teach you. So you have to choose to learn, and at the end of the day, it's a blend from both. You fail and you learn, and you develop yourself and you learn. So I've been through many horrible situations in my life and failures, which helped me to figure out who I am step by step, day in, day out, and try to improve that who I am person. And it's a journey. So that was the starting point. I guess.
And what would you say, even if you didn't used to use that language in that moment, but what would you say are one or two of the big polarities that you've had to conquer throughout your own personal leadership journey? We've given some examples, whether it's engagement and performance, whether it's the present, the future, tradition, modernity. What do you think are some of the key themes that have played a big role in your story?
I think one of the biggest moments of polarity and the moment I think a lot of us or a lot of young generations face today is when I moved from a monoculture company in the 90s from Savola to Unilever, which is a completely diversified culture. You have more than 30 different nationalities, and you're open to everyone in Dubai. So Unilever Dubai, so okay, you can imagine. So it's not Turkey.
Yeah.
You probably face a couple of different nationalities in Dubai. And so that shift, it was like from hot to cold or cold to hot, whatever you want to call it. And that was a moment of truth for me to be able to balance between my identity, who I am, who I want to what I want to stand for, my values, and the learning that I can get from this diversified portfolio of experience and people and categories and life. And so the Lebanese, the Egyptian, the Serbian, the Americans, the British, and all of a sudden I found myself in the middle of all of that. And that is a very tough moment. The equivalent moment of that, I was once in a session like this, and one of our Russian friends or colleagues shared with us the most painful moment in her life was when she changed schools from country to country with her father, who used to work for foreign ministry or and finding yourself in those situations feels painful at the beginning, but I think it's one of the most enriching moments or experiences that you can have.
So you talk about that pain. Actually, let's explore that for a little bit. How do you push through what your nature is telling you to do? We all, like I said, we tend to default to one side or the other because of how we grew up, who we are as people. What has been your driver in saying, no, actually, I'm going to push through the pain of exploring a different way of doing things in a different perspective? What has given you that energy to push through the pain?
First of all, I think we go through different phases of our life. We go through phases where we don't know who we are. And that's, I guess, the most painful, because things happen to you. Your responses to things is causing you problems. The way you handle situations is giving you bad results. Until you realize that you have to accept who you are. And you have to start learning more about this person whom you're dealing and living with. So if you just imagine from birth to death, the only person who's with you is yourself. And sometimes we surprise ourselves that until we're in the 40s or 50s and we don't even know who we are. And I met someone who made it easier for me. He told me, look, you should not know yourself to change yourself. You should know yourself to be yourself with a skill.
Yeah.
So, and that is one of the most important secrets of leadership, the authenticity of leadership. Don't try to be someone else, because you will fail miserably. You will not be able to accept yourself. Your nature, your mother nature, most of us are shaped during the first 7 years of their life. So whatever you do later on will just change a little bit. So accept who you are and be yourself with a skill. That is authenticity. And authenticity gives us comfort in life, which enables us to deal with polarity. I think this is how Well, at least that's how I learned it from good people like yourself.
Not at all. I'm still very much learning and many steps behind you. But I want to resonate with something you said. I just want to repeat it because I think it's such a beautiful and strong message. It's something I sometimes say. I say we're all broken somewhere. Maybe it's a different language to yours. And I'm not trying to fix myself, right? I'm just trying to understand who this person is so that I can understand why I process certain situations in which ways, but also so that I can know what value I have to bring to the world. Because that's really where I should be focusing, not just on, obviously it's good to work on your flaws, but it's good to be an athlete too and compete in what you have to bring to everybody else. And I think that's a beautiful message to just be in full acceptance of oneself.
Spot on, 100%.
Thank you for that. Okay, and so, from Savola to Unilever to where you are today, maybe talk to us a little bit about what are some of these, again, the polarities or the themes that came, you talked to us about, that multicultural aspect. What other polarities were very strong in your early life as a manager and a leader, and which ones have you found now have crept up, later on in your journey as an executive and a CEO?
Well, that's a simple question that
Not
might
at all.
take.
You have 15 minutes for this one.
But look, I think one of the most important things that I have learned throughout my journey is when you do something, just jump into it, immerse yourself, and make sure that you get the best out of that experience. Because most of us spend most of our time or waste most of our time and energy and passion thinking about what's next. So the first thing I have done throughout my 30 years career, I started my career with Savola in 93. I moved to Unilever in 98. In 2010, I was the first homegrown managing director in Unilever. And then I moved to Nahdi 10 years. And every day in Nahdi for the last 10 years, I feel like it's the first day. And the secret recipe is you immerse yourself in what you're doing and accept that there will be tears and moments of happiness. Accept that you will fail and you will succeed. Accept that you will be miserable sometimes and you will be brilliant other times. Accept yourself. And that will help you to accommodate the different polarities that you're surrounded with. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not everyone is going to be happy about your performance. I came to know that with years. The CFO is not happy when the CMO talks about spending his money, and the supply chain guy is not happy when the sales guy sell over the forecast.
Over promises.
Yeah, so I guess no one is going to be happy, and this is where you always have to have clarity about your north. I was once on a whale watching trip in one of those exotic places. My daughters insisted, and I fall into that trap. And we went to the whale watching. And with all due respect, everyone was having seasick. So, and the guy came in and he said, guys, whenever you feel like dizzy and having seasick, look at the horizon. And I think that moment I realized that we as people always have to look at our north. What's your north? What is the one thing that will keep you going no matter what happens? No matter if you have a broken leg or if you're not. What is that thing that you're so passionate and clear about in your north? What's your compass telling you? Because I'll tell you, in operational life, running 1,200 pharmacies with 12,000 people and regulations and this, and investors and employees, and my job is, I'm the chief bad news officer. So I tell my team, my job is to sit here and you come and give me bad news first. Don't worry when you don't give me good news. Give me bad news in order for me to be able to handle that, I have to have a clear north. And our north in Nahdi is very simple. We exist to add beats to our guest life every day. And that keeps us going. Yeah? So during the good moments and the bad moments. Now, when you have to make a decision, do I secure the top line or the bottom line?
Yeah.
Well, in reality, you should not think about both lines. In reality, you should think about the guest. You should think about that person to whom you will make the medicine available and touch his life or her life. That is the true authenticity of leadership.
Yeah.
And in order for us to have comfortable jobs, we have to make sure that we educate everyone around us about what we aspire for, what our north is. In every tough conversation we have, where we have that polarity, someone thinks right, someone thinks left, we remind ourselves that our north is adding beats to our guest's life. So let's just take a step back and think about what that north is. So that's why it's very important. So when this might be too philosophical and too complicated, and not everyone is facing this every day, but everyone is facing his children or his younger brothers or sisters, siblings every day. Whenever you feel like you want to slap him on the face, we go through that, no? Just hold yourself and remember that this 3-year-old child, before you know it, will be 21. So how do you want to shape his future self? And that is where I think we should be long-term driven in our thinking. And it's a journey. It doesn't happen just like that. You have to sweat. You have to learn. You have to put yourself into sessions like this. You have to read. When I got 3 daughters, I spent 3-4 good years reading about parenting. Why? Because I become the CMO of a company. I put myself into training. But I become a parent, I just do it just like that, haphazardly. So it is very important that we take ourselves seriously and have that authenticity in us.
I love that.
I told you it's a long answer to a short question.
I'm not sad about it. What would you say you're still working on?
Everything. Everything. Trust me. I'm still working on everything because sometimes I catch myself doing something that I don't want to do. Sometimes I catch myself saying something. And what I started to look at and do recently is to hold myself back and examine my intentions. Because everything in life starts with intentions. Yeah. So why am I going to respond to that stupid guy on the WhatsApp? Sometimes you feel like you want to just go inside the message and hit him, slap him. But you hold yourself back and you say, I'll give you a recent example. We were sitting in a meeting where we are having a business review. And there was around 25 people in the room. And one young lady was presenting. And that is a closed business meeting.
Sure.
And I looked and I saw someone, another lady, recording her. And I was like, what should I do? I felt so angry because the confidentiality of the meeting, the privacy of the business, the privacy of the person. So I stopped the meeting. And I told her, is this the first time you present? And she said, yes. I said, then let's hold on. I asked that other lady who was recording to move into a different position.
Cute.
Where she can record her with better clarity. And after we finished, and she'd done a brilliant job, and I asked her to share that video with us and with her parents, and because it's a moment of truth.
Of course.
And then when we finished, I asked the team to just make sure that we're notified before they do something like this. I catched myself when I was feeling angry, and I asked myself about my intentions. And I thought of that young lady who probably was doing the presentation for the first time in her life when she was going to be 10 years in the job. And I decided that I will choose to inspire her, not to leave a scar on her first presentation. And I think intention is very important. And as a leader, I can tell you that you go through a lot of those moments. And by the way, you have to choose yourself as well when you're dealing with someone who's more powerful than you. Are you going to cower back and say, yes, I'm happy about what you're saying, or are you going to stand for your values? And to do that, you have to know your values very well. You have to be leading with principles. Stephen Covey has a very interesting book called Principle-Centered Leadership. And you have to know how to say the positive no. And all of that does not happen just by chance. It happens by hard work on your leadership.
I think you're giving us a lot of elements that should be at the center. Our purpose, our intention, our principles. It's about knowing what are the things I'm unwilling to be wavering on, and then being willing to explore from all the other sides of everything else. Just like you chose to center yourself on your intentions and to behave in a way that might even have surprised you, because it wasn't your first reaction, but by centering yourself around something, the rest becomes more agile and more flexible.
Sahih.
What a
That's
beautiful
true.
lesson.
That's true.
I had a mentor who used this expression, which I think was applicable to the situation. He used to say, it is urgent to wait. And I find that it is in those moments where I am most certain about how I should react to something that I should pause. Because in that moment, I'm defaulting either to a self that I'm not, happy with, or just to like my regular way of thinking, and that is the moment I should stop and hesitate.
And that takes a lot of practice.
For sure. I'm not successful every day, to be sure, but you only build a muscle when you practice it, so even if you fail. And I think another beautiful thing that I want to resonate with as well is having empathy towards yourself, too. You won't get it right every time, but knowing that you did your best in that moment, in that situation, and that next time you'll do better, I think is also a great way to develop that muscle, not give up by saying, I'm just always going to be this way, and that's okay. So you chose to also not just take yourself on this journey, but also your leadership team. You've spent a lot of time and effort helping your leadership team develop their own self-awareness and build a stronger team as a consequence. How was that received, and what was that experience like?
I'll tell you an interesting moment. When I first joined Nahdi, and it was 2014, and a few months later, I had to do the one-to-one review session with each one of them. So I invited each one of them to a cup of coffee outside, and I started to listen to their feedback and the business and this and that. And after they finished, they told me, "What's your feedback?" I said, I'm blessed to have you in my team. And they thought I'm just making it up, just to be nice, politics. They said, come on, give me the true feedback. Those sessions, usually you finish with a lot of blood on the floor. And I told them, no, seriously, I'm so blessed because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I mentioned some exact moments and exact positive things about them and the contribution they are doing to the team. So it was true and genuine. And they said, okay, so where's the catch? Where's the but? I said, there is no but. I want you to do more of what you're doing. That's it. And they said, you don't want me to fix anything? So the first year passed, and they were a little bit skeptical about believing me. Next year, fourth year, someone came to me and said, Abu Lubna, when are you going to show us the ugly face? And I said, there is no ugly face. I think I'm dealing with a fruit of basket, and I have to make sure that each one of you is at the best of his capabilities. If you are a banana, then be the best banana in the world. If you are a watermelon, just be as red as possible from inside and have that sweet taste. And that is a learning in life. Each one of us is a gift of God. And you have to believe. Because the problem is, most of us are labeled since we were children. You don't know how to behave. You're not good in doing that. And most of the time, we are labeled with bad things. But reality is, each one of you is the gift of God. And if you are the gift of God, then it's my job to figure out what that gift and your brilliance, and to make sure that I nurture it day in and day out, and to make sure that I keep up with the other side, which is not good, because I do have 90% of my personality, if not more, is not good, and the 10%, and my wife has been keeping up with me for the last 30 years. So, for God's sake, if she can do it, I can do it. And I think this is another important thing, that you accept the polarity. You accept someone who is a driver and someone who is a thinker. You accept someone who's a go-getter and someone who's a strategizer. You accept someone who's calm and someone who's energetic. Accepting those polarities will give you the brilliant mix at the end of the day. Because one of the things that I realized about myself early on is I'm ordinary or below ordinary person. I'm not an extraordinary person. But I decided that by surrounding myself with people who cover up my deficiencies, I can shine.
That's right.
And that's how it is. When you have a football team, you cannot have a striker. الشباب النصراوية اللي هنا, probably they know. You cannot have one guy who's paid 200 million and everyone else is not playing. Yeah? So you need to have a team who is integrating, who's complementing each other, who's a fruit basket. And this team should be extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I know that I'm taking a long time.
No, not at all.
To my surprise, once we were in a training camp in Unilever called 4 Acres in London. They take the top 500 leaders. I don't know how they considered me among them, but I was there with, and you know those training where you're split into groups and you do business simulations and this and that. And in my group, we were very weak people. I mean, like, we were not, there were other groups where they were shockingly stars. Brilliant people. They know how to present, how to think, how to talk business, how to sophisticated. They remind me a lot about the people when I walk into the Riyadh conferences now. A lot of shiny, brilliant people. And we thought, we have no chance. Because at the end of the 1 week, they will choose the winning team. But working together day and night, while we realized that we all are ordinary people, we brought the best out of each one of us. Yeah. We supported each one of us. And we came out, to our surprise, as the winning team. And that was a moment of truth in my life. Because I realized that you cannot be one thing for your entire life. you can improve, you can be an entrepreneur, or a physician, or so you can be a lot of things. You can be whatever you want, but work for it. Bring the best out of yourself, and make sure that you're able to learn from the polarity.
I love that.
Yeah?
I mean, your instinct is about actually what makes extraordinary teams is not that they have extraordinary players, but it's precisely this ability to create space for each person to be the best version of themselves. Now, I can see that that's, part of your DNA in some ways to create that space. But how did you teach your other leaders to do that?
You think
to be accepting of one another?
You think I'm like that all the time?
No.
But look, there is a famous Australian ad. It says, or I don't remember if it's Australian or not, but it says, "Children see, children do." You as a leader have to realize, when I got promoted in Unilever to become the managing director in 2010, in that building, I used to come in and out since 1998. So I lived in that building for 12 years as marketing brand manager and marketing manager and this and that. Then, all of a sudden, one day, I became the boss. I was sitting in the top floor corner room. So I got a brilliant office manager. His name is Shankar. He's retired now, but I'm still in touch with him. Brilliant guy. I knew him for the last 12 years. So Shankar walked into my room, and he said, "Yasser." I said, "Yes, Shankar." He said, "Watch out." I said, "What's going on, Shankar? I didn't even start." He said, "When you walk into the building, people watch you. If you have a smile on your face, the whole mood of the building will change. If you come one day having a fight with Lubna and you don't have that smile, people will realize that the boss is in a bad mood, and that will reflect on everyone." I realized at that moment that life has changed. For us as leaders, and I think those young couples, they will immediately realize when they start having children. Because when you're a couple who are like two free birds going anywhere in Riyadh and attending and going for dinner and coffee and this, it's completely different when you have kids. You have to watch out what you're doing, and you have to test your intentions, test your values, test your impact on people. And I usually try to be myself, so they know me. When at the end of the day, I'm sitting on the head of the table, and I do not shy away from taking that full responsibility, but I give all of them the space to share their opinion, but it's up to me to make the final call.
Sure.
Why? Because when shit hits the fan, I will take that responsibility, not them. I tell them always, I will be the first to step down, not you. So I give them that confidence and comfort. So that's how you build that bond with your team to make them comfortable and fight for the same cause, the purpose of adding beats to guest life.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. The other question that I asked you the other day and that I want to ask you again is, what do Saudi leaders have to teach the rest of the world?
What we have learned from Mohammed bin Salman: confidence.
Tell me more.
When I first walked into the Unilever LOB 8 office in Jebel Ali, Dubai, I almost was below 20% of my confidence. Because looking around, I thought, I told you, that AUB, AUC, AU whatever, and those guys are really cutthroat.
Presenters, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant guys. No, they are brilliant. And I was like that young guy who's coming from King Saud University, spending 5 years in Savola, doing a little bit of marketing, and competing with those guys? And one day, one of our colleagues told me, Yasser, I look forward to see you one day a marketing director. And I was like, why not? I was telling myself, why not? And myself gave me 50 reasons why not. But eventually, I started to build my confidence day in and day out until one day I was assigned in 2006, probably 7, with one of the biggest events that happened in Unilever, not only in Saudi, but in the region, in the bigger region. And that was the launch of Clear shampoo in Arabia. And we did, the team did a brilliant job, the entire business. And we were asked to go to the global forum where there are all the leaders of Unilever and present to them the Saudi case. And you cannot imagine the goosebump I got when we heard that we will be presenting the Saudi case to the world. Yeah, we were all in the mindset that we will always be in the receiving end. The first time we feel like we're in the teaching end. We will now stand up in the world and we tell them how brilliant the Saudi team have done. And I think that confidence boost that happened to us was amazing. And I think Saudi was missing that until the day came when Prince Mohammed bin Salman told us, he looked all of us in the eye, and he said, look, guys, you're by no means less than anyone around the world. Boost your confidence, get the best out of yourself, and let's go. We might fail in some areas, but we probably succeed in many areas. No one is better than us. And you ask me, a lot of Saudi companies, private sector, still did not realize that. When we decided to move to UAE, I have more than 99.9% of the people telling me, don't dare to do it. Don't dare to do it. You will ruin your career.
Wow.
Your reputation will be gone. But I said, well, you know what? I have a team, and one day you will remember, we will be opening in Oxford or Times Square.
Nicely done.
Even if that does not happen in my lifetime, but at least we have the confidence. And now we started with 1, and we just celebrated 25 with Made in Saudi. We had the Made in Saudi team traveling with us to UAE and opening our 25th store to change the experience and add beats to 7 million people over there. So we have to have the confidence on who we are, because we are what? We're the gift of God. Every one of us.
I love that. And maybe after the conference, I'll send all of you this question. Actually, it's become something that I'm really curious, not in exploring, but in telling the story of. Because we learn, you know, I mean, I did a business school. Most of the teachers, the professors, the frameworks, and they were great. I'm not criticizing. We can all learn something from each other. But I think we have a lot of stories to tell from here. And I think telling the story of what leading from here, from this part of the world, I've had some incredible answers. Confidence, long-term thinking, community and compassion. I think there's a lot that we can teach the rest of the world. So I echo your confidence.
We yet have to always think of ourselves as work in progress and be humble enough to learn and develop.
Absolutely. There are a few questions from the audience. I have a final question that I'll ask later on because it's at the organizational level, but there are a couple from the audience that I want to get to as well. This one is a good one because I think that as leaders sometimes we forget, I'm certainly guilty of it sometimes, that the others don't experience the organization as I do, because I have full control over it. Maybe you have a board, I don't. I have my daughter is my chairman. But how do you lead when your control is limited? Is one of the questions that the audience submitted.
How do you lead with
When you
your
don't have control, how do you still are able to show up as a leader, even if control is not in your hands?
The biggest leadership battle each one of us has is with his own self. So if you lead your own self, you are 80% there. Because we compete, we fight with our ego, with ourself, with our desires, temptations, and today, I'll tell you something. How tempting it is to pull out your mobile and start scrolling and watching. Yeah? Who is the person you have to lead at that moment? When you waste valuable 2 hours of your life watching people you don't know and you're not even interested. So it's us. You have to lead yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. You have to lead yourself to hold yourself back when you feel angry or you feel out of control. So I think that's the least. But you have your family, you have your... probably most of us started to think of themselves and their immediate family. Have we ever thought of leading our extended family? What is the role I have with my nephews and nieces? Yeah? So how can I lead this young generation? How can I inspire them? How can I spend time bringing the best out of them? So leadership is not a title, as Robin Sharma says. It's a behavior. It's a decision that you make that I want to be a better person and I want to leave this life in a better shape. Stephen Covey says, when people are attending your funeral, what do you want them to say about you? So what kind of life you want to lead? And by the way, days are counting. You don't have time. We don't have time. You think I'm just saying that? You don't have time. Trust me.
I'm going to remember that next time I look at TikTok. I'm going to remember that. I will tell you about it.
And I tell you, every moment counts. Because when you are getting closer or you're at the end of this journey, the entire journey will pass in your memory in less than 20 seconds. So be careful. I was once in Dubai in 1998 in Chili's, in Jumeirah Beach, and I was with my best friend, Anis Jamjoom, and we were both pushing our 1.5 years old kids, Lubna and Abdurrahman. And one guy stood by and he started to play with them, and then he told us, enjoy them before they grow up. You will not imagine how fast time flies.
So true.
I swear to God, I remember that comment when Lubna was getting married. And when I saw Abdurrahman here in one of the financial conferences in Riyadh as a big banker and making brilliant impact. Life is faster than you think. So just make sure that you get the best out of every day. A lot of people ask me, Abu Lubna, you tell us read books, and then we don't have time. I say, no matter what time you have, read 5 pages, 10 pages. It's what I call the everyday greatness. Be the best today. Don't think about tomorrow. Tomorrow will come. Don't think about yesterday. Be the best version of yourself today. And that will help you to deal with polarities. Yeah, because if you focus that, I'm sitting on the stage and I want to be the best person now. because a lot of people are watching me. So how can I wear the best shumakh I have, the best thobe, and so I really want to be my best today.
Yeah.
And make every day the stage
Beautiful.
of your life.
You've set some big ambitions for us here today, and I think we'll remember this moment in many different times in our future when you've given us the energy and the commitment to make every day count. I think that's such a beautiful message. Thank you for that. I have one more question for you, and it's that when you transition to running a public company, that brings about a polarity in and of itself, which is that there's this sense that we need to report in each quarter, we need to show growth, we need to deliver fast results, and we all know what happens when companies focus on that short-term vision. Actually, they lose vision. How have you been able to manage that new polarity that you introduced into your own life by IPOing the company and now having to manage these new cycles?
Well, every time I think of that as a challenge, I remember how tough is that job of the young influencers because they live that polarity every day. They're exposed to public every day. They make their living out of that exposure to public. And in public, you have people, both sides, people who love you and people who hate you, people who are happy about your performance and people who are not. And that's where I always remember that leadership is not a popularity contest. Because the moment you think of leadership as I have to be popular, I have to please everyone, all my investors, all the employees. No, you have to, as a leader, you have to be principle-centered. And you have to have clear vision of where you want to go and make sure that you act on it. It doesn't matter if they don't like it, because what does matter, the moment when the board does not like it, they will just fire you.
That's fine.
That's it.
That's it.
For every job I took throughout my career, the first thing I do when I walk into the job, I write my resignation and I put it in the drawer. And I still have my resignation
Really?
written and in my office drawer. Why? Because I will always listen to everyone. I will accommodate everyone. I will learn from everyone. But you know what? I will educate myself and I will make sure that we don't have blind spots. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who's sitting in the cockpit. And I'll make sure that I drive this ship, which is opening thousands of doors, avoiding rocks and risks, and spotting opportunities and ports where we can refuel and keep moving on. But you don't listen. I always remember that story of the frog or the frogs who were climbing the Eiffel Tower. And all of them were falling down, except one, who reached to the end.
Okay.
And then they found out that he was deaf. So basically, sometimes you listen. I sit with people and I listen. I make sure that there is a very interesting book, because the first day I walked into a Nahdi, I realized that it's a company that is very much penetrating the communities and it touches very important part of people's life, which is health. So not everyone is happy about what we do, and everyone has an opinion about what we do. Everyone thinks of like the chief network officer in our company, why do you have 2 stores next to each other? Everyone thinks of our prices. Everyone thinks of what we sell. And I remember once, I got a comment about, why are you selling this product? And the guy was very angry. And very next day, I called him, I said, we removed that product, because you're right. Wow. And that is the principle of hug your haters. And sometimes this is, we talk about polarity. It does not get more than that in polarity, because your haters have bad intentions against you. But you know what? Filter that out,
Yeah.
and benefit from what they are doing with you. And you think this is something that I do in the business? No, I do at home. When I sit and discuss with Abdelilah, who's 14 years old, my son, I really have sometimes to hug him, where on the contrary, I want to slap him. Why? Because he proves me wrong. And I have to be humble enough as a leader, as a father, to say, I'm sorry. You're right, I am wrong. Or I learned something from your feedback. I go into social media and I read all the comments. Some of them are like bullets in my heart.
Sure.
But I put my emotions aside and I say, what can we learn? The first time I did that was back in my first job, when you move from your pigeonhole and as a brand manager, and you become a marketing director, and you have 5, 6, 7 people to manage or to lead. So after 1.5 years, I put them in the room and I say, guys, I wanted to be a democratic figure and leader, and said, give me feedback. 5 minutes, no one talked. I said, come on, guys. Feel free. It's a safe place. Another 2 minutes, no one talked. And then they opened machine guns on me. And that was one of the toughest training I gave to myself. And I kept telling myself, Yasser, hold on, don't respond. Don't justify. Those people love you. They are talking out of frustration. Listen to them. Hear them out. And after we finished, I took a lot of points. And there were tears in the room. They were crying. Some of them were crying. And they said, we never thought you will listen to us. Wow. Because this is version 20.0 you see now. Probably you're lucky you haven't met me 20 or 40, 30 years ago. So basically, hugging your haters will enable you to accept life as it is and learn from it.
I told you when we spoke, every answer you gave me was a sound bite. I have so much I need to remember. And I want to tell our audience, actually, that we will send you just those bullet points. Hug your haters, your principles, your intentions. Check your intentions. I mean, the frog story. Actually, someone from my team just Googled it and sent it in our chat. We'll try to maybe bring those beautiful lessons together so we don't forget any of them.
Amazing to sit here and talk to people as if I am the expert of everything. But I tell you, I had my moments. I will tell you a story from our recent history in the business, because in the business as well, it's very tough. I learned from people around the world. So I met with former executives in Walgreens, CVS, here and there, Watsons, around the world. And we came to the conclusion that pharmacy can play a major role in healthcare, because right now healthcare pyramid is upside down. We are the first touch, and we are the closest to people. We have health practitioners. We have the credit, the credibility, the brand equity. We can play a bigger role. So we thought of, let's develop our model of the 1-minute clinic. It didn't work. So we learned from that. And we said, okay, how can we develop a version that serves the Saudi culture and community? So we thought of a polyclinic, a bigger version of a. So we did a feasibility study, and the consultant told us, don't do it. And one day, we decided that we will go ahead and start the first one. And the guys were the construction company was there, the contractor, and they called me. I went there, and they told me, Abu Lubna, Are you sure? I said, guys, start digging. And guess what? We opened the first one. Miserable failure. Big failure. And this shakes your confidence. Even if you are the CEO, you feel miserable because am I taking this company into a black hole? Am I hitting a wall? So what do? You pull back. We open the second one. Big failure. But, and I had a lot of pressure
I'm sure.
from the board. When are you going to retrieve and limit the losses? And I said, you know what? This is one of those moments I will be myself with a skill over my dead body. Even if I lose my job, because I see the vision. I see where we are going 10 years from now, and we will make it happen.
So you opened the third one?
No. We made the first and second one work, and then we opened the third one. Then we opened the fourth one.
Wow.
Then I got the board asking me, how can we accelerate? So this month we celebrated opening the 10th.
Wow.
We are now operating in 6 Saudi cities. But you know what? It was a tough experience. You talk about polarity? This is polarity.
Yeah.
I went back after Fajr prayer and did istikhara every morning just to get the guidance. Am I on the right track? Because I have thousands of people behind me. So you better be right. Yeah? So alhamdulillah,
Alhamdulillah.
we are today building our confidence. When Mohammed bin Salman said, we will be a tourism destination, I bet you a lot of people say this guy does not know what he's talking about.
Sure.
The feedback I'm getting about Red Sea now is overwhelmingly positive. Al-Ula.
Yeah.
When he talked about mining, think about the brilliant industry that we're building in this country. So it's about leadership again, not about risk averse or risk taking like what I've done.
Sure.
It's about balanced approach. Sometimes you take risks and sometimes you hold on.
Sure. Wow. Thank you so much for that. I know that there will be a lot more questions, but I'm also the guide of our timeline and don't want to make you too late. But that's a beautiful invitation to the people in the room, because I think you've inspired us all, and I really love your message of the fact that we're all always going to be work in progress. And I want to invite all of you to reflect a little bit on yourselves. And then we'll have, it's a small group, so we'll have the opportunity to maybe speak to you a little bit more as we continue. And I want you to stay here with us because we're going to experience this together. But maybe before we do that, a round of applause for you. Thank you so much. I feel the need to go and reflect on what you said before I continue, but I can't, so we'll do a debrief later tonight. But I want to invite each of you to think about the polarities that are showing up for you. You've talked to us about so many tonight. And as you say, in different moments in our lives, we will be struggling with different ones, and some that we think we conquered will return, right? Because our context change and who we are is always evolving. So what we want to do tonight is an invitation for you to take a moment after all the beautiful things that we've heard, maybe to reflect on what polarities are showing up in your life. Maybe you see those words on the screen and you say, yep, that's me. I haven't figured that one out. I still struggle with it. Every time this comes up, my body tenses up. I can feel it. And if you can, and this is really just for our own research purposes, if you can scan the QR code that you see here and let us know which ones. It doesn't have to be one. It can be 4 of them. It could be all of them. But just to kind of show us what polarities are showing up for you. And later on, we'll show it on the screen to see which ones in this group here happens to be the 1 or 2 that are most present. Although, again, different groups have different results. And then when you're done having that moment of self-reflection, I want to invite you again to partner up with the people sitting next to you. And if you can do this 2 by 2 so that you have enough time to debrief it, I think the groups more or less works. 4 people here, 6 there, 4 here, and then about, yeah, I think 4 in the back, if I'm not counting Laura and Maria. So the pairs work. I want you to pick one of those polarities that resonated with you, that you're struggling with, and just tell the person sitting next to you what you're struggling with right now, why you picked that one. And we'll do a resonance exercise. So the other person can just tell you what they heard, and then we'll flip you again. But I'd love for you to just have a minute of self-reflection off the back of the beautiful stories that you shared with us. Thank you. Over to you. You want the QR code again? Here. And this is the list. Take your time. If you have the postcard, it's also on the back of your postcards, if you want to be able to see that in front of you. Music?
We're done here.
To leave?
No, I'll just sit.
No, stay. Laura's going to join us as well.
Okay.
We can do this, though. How was that?
Well, I think you're a brilliant interviewer. MashaAllah alayki. Important.
Laura, I don't know if you want to join us for a short minute. Sorry, I'm interrupting. I want to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. I know you guys. Also, no one touched the food, which I'm very upset about. So please do, before you leave, grab a bite. We're showing you here the results of this group. And the ones that show up are self and organization, engagement, performance, and action reflection. And just to close this off tonight, I wanted to invite Dr. Laura, who's leading, now I forget which practices, but you'll introduce yourself. I have them on my phone here. She's a good friend of mine, so I forget the titles and the stuff that come with it. Just like
good sign.
A brilliant, wonderful person that knows a lot about this stuff, a lot more than I do. Because at Egon Zehnder, this is something they've been researching and working with a lot of leadership teams in the region and around the world on. So I wanted to invite, just to close this off, Laura and Abu Lubna to maybe comment on this. And Laura, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about where this pegs up compared to everything you've seen and the research you've done on the topic.
Yeah, thank you. And we just discussed it behind the scenes. It's actually really a surprising results from this group. Maybe very briefly on myself. So I'm actually leading the public and social sector practice for Egon Zehnder. So I work with governments and social sector entities, education sector, public health, and others. And we do executive search, but we also do leadership advisory. And that means, of course, polarities for leaders is something that we often face when we place executives to understand what are the issues they need to balance and what is the expectation of a board towards a new CEO, etc. And of course, we do, as Marilyn said, a lot of research on that. And globally, there are certain elements that come out over and over again that top leaders are actually grappling with. What is interesting is we could have saved all the research just by talking to Mr. Yasser, because he literally hit on every single one of them. So a big one, and I'm just commenting on that and then come to that picture later, is, for example, nature versus nurture. So really the big question of how much are you naturally as a leader? Okay, I'm happy to stand, thank you. How much are you naturally a leader? How much do you need to nurture being a leader? The whole question of succession, the whole question of investment versus just spotting the raw talent is a big topic that many leaders find is a key topic for them. And then, of course, present and future, especially in the kingdom. There is a really big element of we have to lead today. We have the budgets today, we have the targets today, we have the expectations today, but we're building for the future. And a lot of the projects, of course, from Vision 2030 require a leader to be very, very ambidextrous in navigating that. And that is unique. So to your question, Marilyn, about what can Saudi leaders teach the world, that is a skill set in a leader that not in many countries, not at many times in history, have leaders ever had to show that at a degree to which they have to show it today in the kingdom. And you can see that also in how leadership development is happening. What is expected of a young incoming leader is very different from, let's say, I'm German, so from Europe, for example. So this ability to be very agile, but at the same time be very realistic and pragmatic today, because there are targets, there are budgets, there is something to deliver today. That is something that all of you that lead in the kingdom face to a degree that not many others face, and I'm sure there will be a lot of research coming out in the coming years of the kingdom and how this has shaped a whole generation of leadership. What I find particularly interesting here is that tradition and modernity is actually a topic, and I would have expected this to come out quite strongly, especially in the kingdom. Normally we see it come up because it is very difficult. All the leaders that are leaders today have been brought up under very different circumstances, have been shaped in their leadership under a very different understanding of what a good leader is, what good looks like. However, the modernity has a totally different aspect. And many times today, leaders need to lead for a future no one has chartered yet. No one knows how this will look like. No one knows what the expectations will be of the next generation. No one knows how AI is going to shape it. So typically, this is something that many leaders point out they find difficult. But as Mr. Yasser said, it is about the self-reflection and the constant reinventing yourself as a leader, where you can work with that. So I'm surprised about that one. I think the other is self and organization, engagement, performance. These are classic leadership dilemmas that are very traditional, but there are some that I find interesting. But as I said, I think in your conversation that we just heard, it was amazing. I mean, it literally was every single element of what modern leaders are grappling with, where you describe beautifully how your own journey addressed them. So thank you very much for the generosity that you showed today in sharing these lessons with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and maybe any final word of wisdom, maybe in reaction to this, or maybe just something you'd like to leave us with for tonight?
Well, I think they've heard enough from me.
Never. I think we could have been here for another hour and no one would have complained.
but I think this whole concept of be yourself, enjoy life. Don't let others set the agenda for you, and enjoy life on your own terms.
I love that. Thank you. Set your own agenda. Be your own leader. Lead yourself. I think that's a strong message from today. So to close us off, a couple of things. I think you gave us this message of everyday excellence. And so, you know, you're welcome to stick around for as long as you want. There's all this food that's left untouched, and we'll be around for as long as anybody is here. But we want to invite you to pick up, you know, all these polarities that you picked today. They actually have, we designed, as part of the conference, some visual representation for them. So, and we've made them into these little charms, as we like to call them. Pick one up, put it on your keychain, attach it to your laptop case, you know, wherever you want. Because this invitation to everyday excellence, let this be a reminder, actually. Every day as you see these, maybe on some of your regular items, on your luggage, wherever it may be, let this be an invitation to find that everyday excellence. Just something to remember us by. And then I'll leave you with a final quote that I really loved when we were doing the research for the conference, which is, how wonderful that we've met with a paradox. Now we have some hope of making progress. So never be afraid of conquering those paradoxes. You've given us so many beautiful stories. Thank you for that. And thank you all for being here tonight. That's it. Thank you.